The sirens cried through the quiet morning streets of Manhattan, echoing between the glass towers like a warning from fate itself. High above the city, in a hospital room bathed in pale sunlight, a little blonde girl named Sophie Langford lay still. Her tiny body was wrapped in pink pajamas, too innocent for such a cruel world. Beside her, machines beeped faintly, each sound a countdown to what the doctors said were her final hours. At the window stood her father, billionaire architect Richard Langford. He stared out at the skyline he'd built with his own hands, a skyline that now seemed to mock him. For once, his power, his fortune, his influence meant absolutely nothing. The doctor's words still echoed in his mind. 3 days, that's all she has. Beat of silence, he had bought every hope money could buy. Specialists from Germany, new therapies from Japan, even treatments from Switzerland. But nothing worked. Sophie's rare immune disorder had won. On the third morning, as dawn painted the sky gold, Richard's strengths finally broke. He stepped out of the hospital, walking aimlessly through the city he once ruled, his tie loosened, his soul crushed. That's when he saw them. A small barefoot boy stood in the middle of the street, holding the hand of a little girl in pink pajamas beside a worn-out wheelchair. The girl's pale hair shimmered in the sunlight. She looked so much like Sophie that for a second, Richard forgot how to breathe. The boy was talking to her, making her laugh as if the world around them didn't exist. Behind them, a woman screamed in shock as cars honked, but the boy didn't flinch. Richard ran forward, yanking the wheelchair out of danger as a taxi screeched past. Heart pounding, he looked at the children, and something inside him shifted. The boy's eyes, they held no fear, only calm, only kindness, the kind that life can't teach. Only pain can. His name was Noah. He lived on the streets. He didn't beg, he didn't steal, he simply helped. He pushed wheelchairs, carried groceries, sang for coins in subway tunnels. The woman with them, Grace, ran a small shelter. She explained that Noah had found the little girl, Sophie, crying near the hospital weeks ago. Since then, he'd been her strength, her reason to smile again. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. How could a boy with nothing bring light to others, while he, with everything, couldn't even save his own child? Noah's words haunted him. Sometimes, you just need someone to believe you'll get better. The next morning, Richard made a decision no one understood. He brought Noah to the hospital. Doctors objected, but Richard insisted. When Noah entered the room, he walked straight to Sophie and handed her a small wilted flower. "Hi," he whispered. "I met a girl like you once. She smiles even when it hurts. You should try it. It scares the sickness away." For the first time in days, Sophie smiled. And from that moment, something began to change. Every morning, Noah returned, barefoot and cheerful, bringing tiny treasures. A feather, a pebble, a hand-drawn picture. He told Sophie stories about the invisible garden, a magical place where every sick child plants a flower when they smile, and it blooms when they laugh. And slowly, she began to heal. Her oxygen levels rose. Her color returned. The machines that once screamed began to whisper hope. The nurses noticed. The doctors couldn't explain it, but Richard knew this was a miracle. Money could never buy. Noah wasn't curing her body. He was healing her soul. Days turned into weeks. The 3 days the doctors promised had long passed. Sophie's laughter now echoed through the sterile halls, spreading warmth like sunlight. And soon, the word no one dared to say was whispered remission. Richard wept as Sophie hugged Noah goodbye. She told him she wanted to walk someday, to chase the birds he'd told her about, and she did. Because Richard adopted Noah, giving him a home, an education, and a family. But Noah never changed. He still visited shelters, helped the sick, and brought toys to children who had no one. Years later, Sophie stood tall at a charity event beside her father and brother, the once barefoot boy who'd saved her life. She handed him a small framed flower. "I kept it alive," she whispered, "for your invisible garden." It was the same wilted flower he'd given her years ago, now preserved, the symbol of hope. When Sophie spoke on stage, she didn't talk about her illness or her father's fortune. She spoke about Noah, about how miracles don't always come from science or wealth. Sometimes, they come from the smallest acts of love. Soft music swells. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe to Pure Hub Kindness, where stories like this remind us that compassion still exists even in the quietest corners of the world. Because sometimes, it's the ones who've lost everything who end up saving us all.